Hello, welcome to our Walk in the Wheat virtual edition this year. Unfortunately, we can't have you here to show you around the crops, just pre-harvest as we are now, but we're going to do our best via video anyway. Starting not in wheat this year, this is rye, our tallest crop and one of the best crops on an organic farm, largely because of that height. It suppresses weeds well, and that's a big factor, as we might see later on with some short weeds. It suppresses the weeds and it scavenges nutrients really effectively. It's nearly ready. You can see some of the grains in these ears already visible. Rye is one of the crops that doesn't protect its grains very well with chaff, so it's vulnerable if we have showery weather pre-harvest. So we're hoping now that the sun will stick and we should be harvesting this hopefully within about a week, the first week of August. Right next door, another crop which is sort of wheat and sort of isn't, spelt. We have a winter spelt this year. It's a French variety called Convoitise. We've not grown it before, but it seems to like us, seems to be doing quite well. Shorter than the rye. Everything this year is about a foot shorter than I would expect it to be, which is as a result of the drought in April and May. But the advantage is they're standing in the main, but there's going to be less straw than there was. But spelt, the problem of course is the hulling of the spelt. We all know how wonderful it is as a milling crop. Our challenge is to crack the whole hulling problem, because when we harvest spelt, it comes out like that. It doesn't thrash out cleanly from the grains. It stays in these protective hulls. So we've got to secondary process that, and that's something that we need to work on this year. Next one down is down. It's the only crop on the farm that hasn't stood this year. It was shorter than usual, but I'm afraid it still went down. But we had hail last Saturday night, and it's made a bit of a mess in here, which is a shame because it is one of the most beautiful crops we grow. This is our rivet mix. This was provided originally and developed by Ed Dickin from Harper Adams. It's a mixture of Rampton rivet and blue cone rivet, different types of rivet, but rivet is unusual. It's more like Durham wheat. It's very hard wheat. We're interested in pasta. That's the development project that we would like to be a part of with this crop. We did manage it last year. The ambition last year was to grow a small patch, mill some and make our own pasta, which we did, and it was lovely. So we proved that we can do it, proved to ourselves that we can do it. This year we have a much bigger area, so we will be experimenting with that, and we'll have rivet available for anyone who wants to experiment with their own pasta making. Next one is my favourite crop of the moment. This is yeoman. The first time we've grown yeoman, again, seed provided by Ed. I absolutely have fallen for this. I loved it growing at Harper Adams when Ed showed it to me last year. We were able to get a very small amount of seed. Nobody grows yeoman. It's just incredibly unusual. But yeoman has a really important place in history of wheat. Released in 1916, yeoman is a cross between the Canadian hard bread-making wheat, Red Fife, which we as a country were importing then. Obviously those imports of Canadian hard wheat were affected by the First World War, and yeoman became incredibly important, thus the name really. A cross between Red Fife and Berwick, and it was the first true high-quality British milling wheat that was bred, and it gave rise to loads and loads of excellent milling wheats, several of which we've got here. It looks wonderful, it's grown beautifully. I am so excited about it. The one thing we haven't done is eat it, and we won't be doing much of that this year because that's all there is a 3-metre strip. So nearly all of this will be needed as seed, but we will have a very small amount available for trial baking. If it tastes as good as it looks, we will definitely be increasing the area of yeoman next year. I'm proud to do so. It's such an important wheat, the most important wheat of the 20th century, it is said. Next door is one of the offspring of yeoman, who hasn't done quite as well here. This is holdfast. As you can see straight away, there's more weed in it. It's not going to yield as well, clearly. Holdfast came later, 1935. But another really important wheat in the chain of wheats that yeoman gave rise to, really. It was a direct descendant of yeoman. We will see. It's a white wheat, so it's a paler wheat with a much paler outer coating on the grain. Whether we can see that, almost a pinky colour on grains. Now that's important, significant in two ways. The advantage is that the dark colour on the outside of grains is the bran, is what gives us the flavour, but it also gives us the bitterness that you find in whole grain flour sometimes. Holdfast is a sweeter wheat, so it should taste better, but that lack of intense coating also makes Holdfast more vulnerable to weather. So it's one, again, a bit like the rye, that we will be harvesting the moment it's ready. It's not ready, unfortunately, but as soon as it is, we'll target that and get it safely in the barn to preserve what quality it's got. Again, a very small strip, so we won't have much, but if it bakes wonderfully, it may have a place, even though it hasn't grown quite as well as it should. Right next door, a tiny bit of it down there, so we'll walk past that, is the favourite flower of the year. This is Miller's Choice, and rapidly became my favourite flower, baking at home, and was very popular with people that we sent it to this year. Miller's Choice was developed by Andy Forbes and John Letts, and it was a mixture of red lammas type wheats and square head wheats, which were of lower quality. The combination is more reliable though. The square heads are very reliable. The red lammas is very high quality in terms of baking. It has been colour sorted this by John and Andy, so they have prioritised the red grains, which will have strengthened the red lammas-ness of it. So this becomes very representative of the wheats of even as far back as the 18th century, red lammas type quality milling wheats. Wonderful flavour, the best flavour of any wheat we've grown so far, I think. Usually goes flat like that bit, but this year being shorter, it stayed upright in the main, which is great. Really looking forward to harvesting it. We've got quite a big block this year, so we'll have lots of lovely Miller's Choice. Hen Gymru, I can't do a Welsh accent, I'm afraid. Old Welshman. In Welsh, the red straw is the giveaway here. It's the only wheat we grow that looks like that. This is the first crop of the composite, the Welsh Grain Forum composite of Hen Gymru. We, as many of you will know, we grew it last year to multiply seed up really, and produced a bigger quantity of seed with the aim of getting that growing on more farms, particularly in Wales. With the help of Andy Forbes, the decision was taken to form an amalgamation of the three lines we had, the three lines collected 100 years ago, one by the Welsh Institute and the two by Vavilov and taken back to Russia. We have the three lines together here, so it's 50% S72, 25% S70 and 25% VIR for those of you interested. This should be the closest representation as we are going to get to the Hen Gymru landrace that was grown so widely in Wales 100 years ago, in about as late as the 1920s, or as recently rather as the 1920s. So looking forward to seeing how it bakes. It's been done deliberately in those proportions for baking quality as well. So these will be the first crops, will be the first amalgamated composite Welsh Grain Forum Hen Gymru. Next door is a mixture, the same as last year, the Kent blend really, or the Kent mixture, which is a mixture of Old Kent Red, now, I think. Old Kent Red, which is a red lammas type, and you can see two distinct types of ears in here actually, and the Kent Old Hoary, which is a whiter grain ear with more chaff. Again, it's a blend that is practical, so the Hoary is more reliable, the lammas type, the red, is better quality in terms of baking. This mixture of sort of 50-50 of the two grown together like this is reminiscent of those wheats grown as documented as long ago as the mid 18th century as the London loaf bread making wheat. So grown in the southeast of England particularly, a lot of it consumed in London, producing that London loaf of the day. So very authentic. We have sold some of it to London, which is lovely, but again high quality, but of real historic importance, very relevant in the progression of wheats. If we can turn around and move in this direction, excuse the back of my head, the last crop in this field on the headland, in the case of this field, just around the outside, you've got patches around the farm, is YQ, is our ORC Wakelands population. Everybody will have heard me talking about this in the past, I'm sure. It's wonderful. Absolutely love YQ, developed by Martin Wolf in 2002 when he took 20 varieties and crossed them with each other, producing 400 different varieties that were then grown together to produce an incredibly diverse population. The idea of that, one of the ideas of that is that diversity will not only add reliability, but it will allow it to continue to change and evolve, because it starts with such a breadth of diversity that the internal crossing will create new plants all the time. We think that's happening. We think it is evolving. This is 5 years now it's been grown here with the same seed being saved each time. So over the 5 years it should be developing into a wheat that likes us and likes to live here. So half the idea with YQ is that we keep it growing and we maintain the same seed so that it develops and it improves. But YQ wonderful. Cakes, biscuits, pastries, as well as bread. Quick change of field into the long lazo. This is spring wheat, Malika, so we don't need to talk about that. It's a group 1 milling wheat, should be very useful. It's much shorter because it's a spring wheat. It also hasn't had a very good year because of the drought. It's affected our spring cereals a lot more. The interesting thing in this field is it's the site of our living mulch project. So if you look down, we have sown in the bottom of this spring wheat and in the adjacent buckwheat white clover with as a part of the Innovative Farmers Field Lab on living mulches. We're hoping, the plan is that we drill directly into this living white clover in the autumn. With winter oats it will be. So here, at any rate, it's grown really well. It's enjoyed the rain recently, but really exciting project. But I shouldn't go on about that. Next door is buckwheat, wonderful buckwheat, absolutely lovely to grow, fabulous for pollinators, heaving with bees. This morning again, it's just wonderful. It flowers right through from May to the end of August. There were still dropping flowers on it when we combine it. We proved last year we could grow it and we could harvest it. The challenge with buckwheat, it's all about the post-harvest processing, the hulling possibly, or the milling. We've managed it on a small scale. We've eaten pancakes made with our own buckwheat flour, which were wonderful. So we've achieved the first aim, but this year we really need to develop this as a crop and work out answers to the questions we have left. But it's wonderful to grow. It's also undersown with the white clover, which is much smaller down in there, obviously under this thick canopy, but it is there. So we're hoping that it proves to be a possible contender for the living mulch establishment. Bar Langley has got our live wheat trials in it this year, so there's two things going on. There's the growing of milling grains for sale. There's also trials under the ORC live wheat programme. This first one is a peculiar one though to that even. This is Malika cross Holdfast, again crossed by Ed Dickin, that shows so much promise. Malika, modern, wonderful Group 1, technically superb. Holdfast, older, maybe slightly flawed, but full of character and wonderful, wonderful flavour. So it's great milling quality. We had very little for sale last year because we were multiplying up seed. This year we will have a lot more because there's a lovely band of it. It might just be the best wheat in this field, I think. Looking really, really good at the moment. Next one is much shorter and the first of our real modern wheats. This is Siskin, which is a Group 2 wheat, so it's not a pure bread making wheat. It's in the trial because ORC have a common variety across all the farms participating, and Siskin is that common variety. So we have to grow it to standardise our results, but it is a Group 2 wheat, so we'll give it a try. It might well be suitable for baking of some sort. It's only a shade lower on protein than the Group 1s, so who knows, we will see when we get to harvest. And then the third one, in quick succession, is one of our favourites from last year. It was our favourite modern wheat last year and we decided to grow it on again for sale. This is Montana, slightly taller than most of the moderns. Again, it's not really showing this year because it's such a short year. But Montana has been lovely. It's a German bred E-wheat, which is their highest standard. So it would be the equivalent of a Group 1 wheat here. But we found nothing we don't like about it really. It's the best of the modern wheats in terms of crop structure for growing and weed suppression. But it also bakes really nicely as well. So a lovely standard wheat really that we'd like to continue with. The last of the modern wheats in the live wheat trial, this is Alabaster, which is new to us this year. It's an unusual, it's very short, which is not great. Weed suppression has not been good. You can see just looking across the field there, you can see that this wheat hasn't competed with the weeds as well, and there's more of them in it. In a less weedy year, it's still a little bit dirty, which is a shame, but it's coming together. The ears look good, the grain numbers look good. It's unusual, alabaster, it is a white wheat, so the grains are pale, and in terms of being a different colour, I just picked some of the Montana next door, Montana there to the left, alabaster on the right, much yellower, much paler seed coating. It's that seed coating which creates the flavour in the bread, but also the bitterness in the bread. So hopefully, don't dismiss this one. It may bake superbly. It is a brand new Group 1 wheat, but it's designed really for the mass market that wants sweeter, paler whole grain bread. But we will see. It might well be that it has a part to play, and we'll look forward to baking it. Next door to alabaster is a quick strip of instantly recognisable to you all YQ, with its wonderful diversity, every year different from every other field. That's again to just standardise the trial, and then the final join in this field is here to the wonderful one. We've got a big area of it, Maris Widgeon, which is just faultless really, lovely to grow, taller again, YQ, beautiful crop in the field, really vigorous, love growing it and love baking with it as well and selling it. Everybody's pleased with Maris Widgeon. From 1964, offspring of Holdfast, granddaughter of Yeoman, wonderful, what could be better? So the wonderful Maris Widgeon, and a great big block, so we'll have loads of that. Into the final field, only 2 crops in here, or in a way anyway. To the right is Crusoe, which again is just a Group 1 milling wheat, a modern Group 1 milling wheat, but it has a great reputation. It's marketed as the miller's favourite, and it is popular with some of the millers we know, so we decided to grow a decent area of Crusoe again, so we've got that reliable wheat there. To my left here is much more interesting. This is unique. There's none of this anywhere else in the world. We're the only growers, because this is Coppice Blend, named after our old farm here. This is a mixture of wheats, milling wheats, all good quality milling wheats from the 40 years that I've been sort of aware of milling wheats anyway, plus a little bit. We've gone back right to the start with some of the old ones, and we have some new ones in there as well. So the new ones from last year, Montana, Zayat and EO Gold, are all represented, along with current organic favourites, Crusoe that we just seen to the right, and Nelson. Also X-Days, which is a modern Group 2 wheat but with fantastic disease resistance. And then going back, older wheat, Soissons, with the wonderful horned ears. That's undeniably Soissons there appearing. Cadenza, Avalon, Mercia from my first time on this farm, and Hereward, the organic favourite. It's been a great organic milling wheat for many years. So Coppice Blend, we are going to be the only source of that anywhere. We did try some baking with the leftover seed, and it was wonderful. So really excited and really hopeful that this is both great in the field and becomes something permanent for us, but also one of the best crops that we'll have available to sell. It's going to be a reasonable amount of it as well. If you're interested in any of the crops that we've looked at, or anything else, then please do contact us, Mark and Liz Lee. Our email is greenacres-farm, all lowercase, greenacres-farm@btconnect.com.